Based on a true story, the film unfolds in May 1984 when an unemployed ice cream truck driver from Ohio shows up on the game show Press Your Luck. Using a false name, he presents the producers with a plate showing the game's symbol. This baffles the staff and even provokes some chuckles. But then the man gives a heartfelt account of how he watches the show with his beloved wife and daughter. Show director Bill Carruthers is intrigued by the man's eccentricity, but before he can decide whether to let him participate, Sylvia, one of the staff members, reports that the man from Ohio isn't who he claims to be. He is escorted out of the room. Nevertheless, Carruthers, despite objections from junior editor Chuck, decides to catch up with the man and inform him that he will be allowed to compete on the show, believing that such unique players are just what the ratings need. The thrilled man reveals his real name, Michael Larson, and goes off to clean himself up. He buys a jacket at a thrift store, trims his beard, puts on a bow tie, and heads to the TV station. Contestants are greeted by editor Sylvia, who guides them through several locations, including a backdrop of Hong Kong. At last, the players arrive at the studio where they're welcomed by the show's host, Peter. The first group of 3 contestants plays while Michael and his group watch, but soon it's their turn. Ed, one of the new contestants, makes it into the second round and dreams of buying a truck. Michael admits that he wants to use the prize money to go on vacation. He sends a greeting to his daughter Susie and to the most beautiful woman, his wife Patricia. Watching the conversation, Carruthers rubs his hands with satisfaction, sensing the audience's affection for Michael. The third contestant, Jenny, shares that she works for a drunk dentist, but her humor doesn't quite land with the audience. The host explains the rules. In the first round, he'll ask a series of questions, and the contestants must press a button and give the correct answer. Once the first contestant answers, the same question is posed to the other 2, but now with 2 additional answer choices, from which they must pick the correct one. The contestant who answers first gets 3 spins for a correct answer, while the others receive 1 spin each for a correct choice. The round begins, and at first Michael rushes and makes mistakes. Ed cheers him on, advising him to enjoy the game. Michael regains composure and gives the right answer. There's a short break. Michael asks Sylvia for permission to make a phone call, but per the rules, all calls are prohibited during filming. Moreover, it's time for the second round, and this is the real game. The electronic board contains 18 squares, each with a prize in the form of money or vouchers. But some squares hide the villain whammy. Landing on a whammy wipes out the contestants' entire winnings and forces them to start over. 4 whammies eliminate the player entirely. As the player with the lowest score in the first round, Michael goes first and immediately earns 2,000 points. He repeats the success, but after the second winning spin, lands on a whammy. Frustrated, he curses, a violation of the rules. However, Carruthers decides to overlook it and allows Michael to continue, even with a score reset to 0. Ed takes his turn, but Michael watches the flashing lights on the board very closely. A break is announced. While the other 2 contestants head to the restroom, Michael persuades Sylvia to let him make a call, saying it's his daughter's birthday today. Though she initially resists, Sylvia finally agrees when she hears it's a special occasion. However, the girl doesn't pick up, and Michael leaves a birthday message on the answering machine. The trio returns to the studio. Michael begins the round, and something happens that American television has never seen before. As he gains control of the board, he surges ahead and keeps winning, while Carruthers receives congratulatory pats from colleagues. This is turning into an extraordinary show. But as Michael continues to succeed in round after round, the mood among the crew shifts from excitement to growing concern and tension. Michael, however, doesn't stop. He seems completely confident in the success of his risky plays. The lights on the board flash rapidly, yet somehow Michael keeps landing on spaces with cash prizes, vouchers, or both. His winnings now total $19,000, while the show's all-time record stands at $21,000. The host urges him to think carefully. If he lands on a whammy, he'll lose all that money. Michael presses the button and wins $24,000. It's a new record, and among the managers and editors, the excitement grows. The host again tries to slow the lucky contestant down, but Michael has no intention of stopping. Carruthers asks for the host to be brought to him since serious money is now on the line, and Michael shows no sign of backing down. Peter is forced to call for a break. The makeup artists touch up the contestants, while Michael declares that if he hits $50,000, he'll take everyone out to dinner. Jenny looks on with deep sadness. She hasn't even gotten the chance to press the coveted button. Ed, on the other hand, supports Michael, saying that with that kind of money, even his wife will start treating him better. Meanwhile, Peter and Carruthers try to figure out what's going wrong, unable to believe that such luck could be real. The producers suggest different tactics to throw Michael off his game, even by scaring him. Armed with their advice, Peter returns to the studio to continue the show. He announces the third round of an incredibly intense and thrilling game. Michael's winnings keep climbing, while Peter admits that he's seen his share of lucky contestants, but never anyone as recklessly brave as Michael. Statisticians in the room calculate that his chances are now 1 in 6, meaning one of the next 6 spins could be his last. But the audience no longer wants him to lose, and they cheer him on loudly. And Michael declares that he's going to keep playing. At that moment, Carruthers asks Chuck to look into Michael's background. He suspects the man is somehow cheating the game. He even starts to suspect his own staff, though he has no idea how they might be helping Michael win. Chuck reviews the data Michael provided, but nothing seems unusual. Then he remembers the van sitting in the parking lot outside the studio. He heads down to check it out, but can't get inside. Through the window, he sees some official-looking envelopes. After circling the vehicle for a bit, he's about to give up when a parking lot worker shows up with a crowbar. Meanwhile, Michael's winnings reach $42,000, making him a crowd favorite and a nightmare for the show's producers. Carruthers convinces himself and others that the man is clearly a fraud, but no one can figure out how he's doing it. Carruthers calls a technical break and threatens the crew with serious consequences if he finds out anyone's been helping the contestant. Later, the game resumes, and the winnings soar past $50,000. During this time, Chuck examines court documents addressed to Michael and finds a large bag of videotapes. He calls one of the numbers listed and learns that Michael Larson was served a restraining order by a man named Lyle Roberts, who owned a small business in Ohio. However, Lyle refuses to speak further, though it's clear he's furious with Michael. Meanwhile, a makeup artist reminds everyone about the promised dinner. Michael has now crossed the $50,000 mark, but in reality, the woman is checking under Carruthers' orders to see if Michael's wearing an earpiece. Finding nothing, she signals to the producers. At the same time, Chuck begins watching the tapes found in the lucky contestant's van. Aside from a few clips featuring his wife and daughter, the rest are all recordings of the show. After watching several tapes, Chuck finally realizes that Michael had meticulously studied how the lights moved across the electronic board. By now, the winnings have reached $68,500, and Michael shows no signs of stopping. Chuck rushes to the boss and points out how Michael's eyes move in sync with the lights on the board. They realize he memorized the light patterns, only 5 in total. This means Michael really is cheating, but how can they prove it? Meanwhile, Sylvia is escorting the players who never got their turn. Oddly, Ed is the only one who sincerely celebrates his opponent's success. He congratulates Michael and snaps a photo to remember the moment. Michael himself seems to be growing tired of the show. He steps into the hallway and makes another phone call. This time, Patricia answers. She tells him that their daughter's classmates have come over for a birthday visit. During the conversation, it becomes clear that Michael's wife has decided to leave him, and he believes that if he wins enough money on the show, he can win Patricia back. However, she doesn't want to hear it and calls their daughter to the phone. Michael wishes the girl a happy birthday when suddenly someone in a whammy costume calls out to him. He hangs up and heads back to the stage. The next round is about to begin. At the same time, a heated argument erupts among the producers. One of them accuses Carruthers of short-sightedness. After all, designing only 5 board patterns was, at the very least, foolish. Now all they can do is wait for Michael to make a mistake and later patch the biggest flaw in Press Your Luck. The producer threatens to call the network's top executive, but Carruthers forbids it. She slams down the phone without looking. At that moment, Peter reminds everyone that there's still one more round, the home spin, where contestants play on behalf of someone they know. Maybe this will throw Michael off and cause him to slip up. Michael has just won another jackpot when he's asked to draw a card and see who he'll be playing for. He flips it open and reads the name Lyle Roberts. The audience watches his face change, and Ed tries to support the stunned contestant. Michael plays and wins Lyle a trip to a luxurious 5-star resort. The crowd applauds the mysterious Lyle, while Michael asks for the studio lights to be adjusted, saying one is now shining directly into his eyes. The lighting crew is confused. Nothing has changed. As the technicians investigate, the studio director Ron arrives, furious over the mounting losses. Carruthers tries to pin the blame on Chuck, and Ron demands to see him. Meanwhile, Jenny throws a fit, promising trouble for Sylvia for letting Michael make a call. Ed tries to console the now somber Michael, not understanding what's upset him so deeply. Michael confesses that the showrunners are messing with him. They chose Lyle for the home spin, the very man who wronged him so deeply. Michael steps out to gather his thoughts and calm down. But once in the hallway, he notices the phone is missing from the wall. Chuck appears and tells him it's been taken in for inspection. He compliments Michael's VCR, subtly signaling that he's seen the tapes and hinting at legal trouble for fraud. Panicking, Michael bolts. He finds his van has been broken into. Though the tapes are still there, it's clear Chuck has seen them and knows what's on them. Michael tries to appeal to the parking lot worker, but the man drives past. Just then, Michael spots a police officer who says he just arrived and didn't see who broke the door. Their conversation is interrupted by more officers, talking about some major fraud and a suspect. Thinking they're here to arrest him, Michael flees into the building, but ends up in the wrong studio. The host invites him to talk, and Michael suddenly admits that all he really wanted was to have breakfast with his family, and the only way to do that was to be on TV when they were watching this channel. He traveled 5,000 kilometers to be closer to the one he loves, but now finds himself 5,000 kilometers farther away. Everything he's done, all those months of effort, was for her. The host tries to continue the conversation. When Sylvia finds Michael, she searched the entire building. It becomes clear the police officers were actors, called in for a shoot. Michael calmly walks back to the studio where the audience is chanting for his return. At the same time, Ron prepares to fire Chuck, and a major scandal is about to erupt. But one of the producers suddenly interrupts the argument, pointing out that instead of trying to stop Michael, they could use him to their advantage. He's turning into a national hero right before their eyes. By promoting the image of a blue-collar man who beat the system, they could rake in millions in sponsorships and ad deals. This, she says, is the American dream. Everyone instantly forgets about Chuck, and Ron starts making calls to advertisers. The game continues. Michael keeps winning. Chuck suddenly notices the phone receiver lying next to the phone. He dials Lyle's number and hears him call out to Patricia. Chuck realizes that Michael's beloved wife is now living with his enemy Lyle. Meanwhile, Michael's winnings have reached $102,750. Even the studio staff are now rooting for him, placing bets among themselves. Peter congratulates him. This is the biggest win ever on television. Then he invites Michael to speak with someone special. A phone rings in the studio, and Patricia's voice comes on, asking what's going on. Carruthers has no idea who arranged the call, while Peter politely explains to the woman on the line that her husband is in the studio, winning a lot of money. But she starts yelling, demanding that he just sign the papers and get out of her life. It hits like a bombshell. After all, Michael had insisted that he had a wonderful, loving wife. She hangs up. In complete silence, Michael walks out of the studio. Peter accuses Carruthers of setting him up, but Carruthers himself is clueless. He doesn't know who connected Patricia to Michael. It turns out the operator received a note, supposedly from Carruthers. That's when the second assistant steps in, suggesting they all pretend the call never happened. Carruthers goes after Michael, who has locked himself in the restroom and refuses to come out or finish the game, despite Ed's attempts to convince him. However, he agrees to talk to Carruthers. When confronted with the accusation that he simply memorized the board, Michael says he's ready to quit and walk away. But the producer makes him an offer to become a star, the luckiest man in America. And he even says he's fine with Michael calling his ex-wife. Michael agrees to return to the studio, but as he dials Patricia's number, he suddenly ends the call. He returns to the set and passes his turn to Ed, sending Carruthers into a fury. But neither Ed nor Jenny has any luck, and the final spin ends up in Michael's hands once more. He closes his eyes and hits the button. Somewhere in Ohio, Patricia and her daughter are watching the show, seeing Michael play, when her husband Lyle arrives and takes the girl to school, despite her plea to stay and watch her dad. After they leave, Patricia sits back down in front of the TV, watching the unbelievable game unfold. Tears roll down her face as Michael is declared the luckiest man in America, and the final prize lights up on the board, $110,237. An intriguing story with an impressive cast keeps the audience hooked at every twist and turn. In real life, Michael did in fact win that exact amount, but he wasn't able to put it to good use. He bought gifts for his daughter and invested the rest into a Ponzi scheme, which turned out to be the biggest mistake of his life.